I should probably close this. Okay, perfect.
All right, I'm in.
Awesome. Okay, so anytime we have a virtual visit, it's going to be marked as within the Google Calendar as virtual. I can actually show you. So if you go here and oh yeah, sorry, mild brain drain on how to get to the Google Calendar. So if I go to week, so once you join the research program, this is kind of when the first things that Dr. Wen should go over, like have you do basically. It's basically he's just allowing you to share, to get access to the Google Calendar. And this is where we put all of our patients with, or like all of the patients visits basically. So this one was actually canceled, but if you'll see, there's a virtual visit in parentheses. So this is what's going to indicate you to, okay, virtual visit. And something that also you'll probably see is that the virtual visits will be colored. This one, again, is canceled, so it's gray. I know we have one coming up. So right here, you see that green, it's a virtual visit. Or it says virtual in parentheses, and it's green. At least during the times of COVID, this is a good indicator that it's going to be a virtual visit, just because you can see all of our other ones are green canceled. But due to the fact that we just can't have in-person visits, and you'll see a lot of these have blood draws. So we have different visits for each portion of the pregnancy. So Ethan, did anyone tell you what the A's and B's mean? So if I go back to the calendar, you see this person has a B number in front of their virtual visit.
I haven't heard that yet, no.
Okay, so patients, for confidentiality purposes, they are assigned their own numbers. And the B just stands for our breastfeeding study, because we have a breastfeeding and pregnancy study, and we also have a pregnancy and smoking cessation study. So if the patients in the pregnancy and smoking cessation study, they're going to have an A in front of a number. And if they're in the breastfeeding study, they're going to have a B in front of the number. There are going to be a couple of exceptions. So there was a pregnancy and smoking cessation patient who also joined our breastfeeding study, and she still has the A in front of her name, but that's because she was, or in front of the number, but that's because she was the first one. So you're not going to see that too often. And the pregnancy and smoking cessation study is kind of winding down. So you're not going to see as many of those patients, but it is good to know that if you see an A, then it's pregnancy and smoking cessation. And the reason why I wanted to say this is because it becomes important when you come here. So you'll see that we have two folders that we have, well, we have more folders, but we're aiming for this smoking cessation study as well as breastfeeding and smoking relapse study. So just like how I explained before, if there's pregnancy and smoking cessation, if there's a visit for that, we're going to go into this folder. And if there's a breastfeeding study, if there's a B patient, then we're going to go into the breastfeeding and smoking relapse study. So for your first few times, trust me, Dr. Wen isn't just going to like throw you into a virtual visit. Generally, he'll ask somebody who's had more experience to be like, hey, are you free to do this? Or you can sign up with somebody who's already signed up, because they more than likely have been in virtual visits or conducted it, but generally you'll get at least like 2 times of observing before you're asked to conduct a virtual visit yourself. So no panicking, because the first time I saw this, I mildly panicked. So, oh, that was very loud. So, like I said before, each portion of the pregnancy, like we have different visits for those. So that's already going to be stated within the Google Docs. So you're already going to have an idea. So if I click on this virtual visit, it says 12 months postpartum. You can't really, it kind of got cut off, but like it said, trust me, it says 12 months postpartum. So you're not just going to have to like willy-nilly guess and check, but it is going to affect what you are going to pick. So if you'll see, we have step 1, contact screening, pre-test. We don't use, to my knowledge, oh no, we do use intervention. There's no quizzes for that, I'm sorry. Post-test, end of pregnancy, and postpartum. So if I click on postpartum, just basing it off of the patient we just saw in the virtual visit, and I go to 12 months, so again, this postpartum in and of itself has a bunch of different months that are going to coincide with what the patient is listed for. So all you really need to do is follow the Google Calendar, and then once you see where that is or what the patient is scheduled for, then you can just kind of follow these steps to get here. So if I click on 12 months postpartum, what happened? Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. My apologies. You want to go to BF visit material and go to visit instructions. Okay, now we're in the right folder. So there are no folders here, but they are still going to have the step 1, step 2, and later on, if I can just click on it, it's going to have this lab screening, pre-test, prenatal intervention visit, post-test, end of pregnancy, and postpartum. So you just pretty much need to click on the one that you need based on the earlier, or based on the Google Calendar. And these have already been done. So all you need to do is fill it out. Something I really, really, really need to stress is that you need to move this. So basically, you need to copy this and paste it into the patient's folder. So what I mean by that is if I go back to the breastfeeding and smoking study and I go to BF visit materials, you'll see that there are patient folders. And I just did that really, really quick because I forgot this was being recorded. But those patient folders they're going to be with the names of the patients that you're seeing. And you're going to want to copy the visit instructions and paste them into the patient's individualized folder, and then edit the name or edit the title of that as appropriate. So for example, I would probably put the patient's name in front of this step 6. So it's like, I'm going to delete this after, but just to show you. So I probably do. This is my name. And then,
sorry for interruption. Can you today start with the step 1? The training?
oh yeah.
Today when
Sorry.
Whole procedures.
But you would just need to, just finishing up that thought in general, you would just need to copy all of these and paste them into the patient's folder. So do not edit these directly here or else it's going to mess it up because these are our raw formats. I really can't stress it enough. Okay, so like Dr. Wen said, I'm going to start with step 1. So this is our initial kind of, this is for a patient who's having their very first visit. So this is the lab screening, and it's for all of them, they're gonna have pretty much everything you need in these steps. So I would recommend prior to a visit, if you can, just kind of look over these steps so you get comfortable, especially if you haven't done one before. But the first thing we're going to do is initiate the Zoom call. Generally, Dr. Wen has been doing this, but that might change in the future if we get more and more patients doing virtual visits. Once we're back in the lab, this is actually going to be in 2 different lab rooms. So we're going to have like the physical computers there. But for the moment, we use Zoom to do this. And Dr. Wen has been sending the link to the patient. So generally, you're going to be in a group chat with the patient, and then that's going to give you access to the Zoom call. This greet the patient is pretty individual for the lab screening itself. We just want to confirm the patient's identity. So you're just going to ask them to show a valid form of ID, as well as, so you can see their photo ID. and their date of birth. And then you're just going to want to jot down the date and the month of birth. And then this would be something so this confirm if she or he has completed the 2 surveys for recruitment. So they have to complete a lab screening survey and a contact survey prior to this appointment. You can check that in SurveyMonkey. I can either show you how to do that now or show you how to do that later. But I would recommend doing that before the visit, just so if the patient, like, you're kind of coming in prepared if the patient hasn't done the survey. And then this consent form is something that we have to do for patients to make sure that they understand the study, they are willingly participating in the study. You probably went over this in I think it was the SIGI training. This is one of the things that we need to do because we're participating with human research subjects. So they need to understand that it's like, hey, we've done everything we can to keep your personal information private, but there's a slight, very, very minimal possibility that somebody could hack into that information and get it. But it's just making sure that the patient understands the purpose of the study, any potential risks that come with participating in the study, and that they've given their written consent. So this is done via the mail. Normally we would do this in person, obviously, but we can't. So they are going to receive it, and they should read that. And yeah, for this one, you just ask them to read it, and if they have any questions, they might have already read it prior to the visit, in which case you can be like, okay, do you have any questions? If they haven't, just give them a little bit of time, and then they can read through it at the moment. So this review smoking status on patient visit calendar, this is also something you need to kind of copy and paste into the patient's folder. So this one is going to be found, oops, I went back too far. It's still going to be found in the BF visit material. It's going to be under patient folders. You'll see there's this shared files. And this is going to have kind of all of the sheets that we normally use. And one of them, if you'll notice, is the 2020 weekly calendar with holidays, or the patient visit calendar. So if I click on this, give it a moment. This is kind of how we track if the patient is smoking. So, and we also use this to track the patient's visits. You'll see there's a time and a visit place. Obviously, we're not going to do that every single day for cigarettes. It's like, okay, what was the time that you smoked that cigarette? This is primarily for keeping track of when the patient's next visit is. Excuse me. So if the patient's, so it's kind of like a dual purpose, but this is something, again, you're going to have to copy and paste from this original section into the patient's personal folder. Whoop, where am I? Yeah, where'd it go? Okay, there we go. So when it says review patient smoking status, again, just say, since this is their first visit, you don't have to go the entire year. It's just in the past week about how many cigarettes have they been smoking. And try to avoid ranges, because it makes it hard for people who are coding. So just try, like, if they give you like, oh, between 6 and 8, just put 7, because it's about the medium. The weight measurement, this is one of the videos that I filmed about how to take the weight measurement. I might need to do it for pregnancy because it actually differs. But this weight measurement, the patient should have already received this scale. If they haven't, just either let Dr. Wen know and skip this portion in and of itself, just because they can't really weigh themselves without our scale. Although they could, if they do have a scale their own, they could, I think in a pinch, they could always use that, but we haven't run into that issue yet. But generally, anytime where we have these data, where we're collecting data, you're going to repeat it 3 times just to make sure that everything is as accurate as humanly possible. So, and by 3 times, I mean there should be a total of 3 times. And then height measurement, you don't have to repeat this step because people generally don't grow in a minute, I hope. So it's just, and again, we just kind of ask the patient, not again, but we ask the patient for their height and record it on a separate sheet. So again, that's going to be something that's going to be found in your shared files. So this is the adult height and weight sheet. And these are also 2 sheets you're going to be using repeatedly. The patient visit calendar, you only need to copy and paste to the folder once, because we just use that obviously throughout the entire year. So there's really no point in copying and pasting a bunch of different versions for visits that are potentially a week apart. This one you're going to have to copy and paste every single time. You don't necessarily have to take the height measurement every single time, but this weight reading is definitely something that we are going to be taking quite every single visit. And this sheet is going to change once the individual has given birth, but if the individual is still pregnant, this is the sheet that you're going to be using. Okay, so far, any questions?
Nope.
Oh, seems all good to me.
Perfect. It's very straightforward, especially like if you read it, it will give you step by step. It's just kind of like slight things that, hey, insider tip, do this first. And even though this is in a step by step, you don't necessarily have to follow this step. So follow this exact order, especially once you get more used to doing visits. Sometimes it's easier to do this step first and then this step after that's not listed. So don't feel like this is like, I have to follow this exact order or else. For this one, this visit is usually pretty short. There's not just because it's just kind of like taking base measurements, making sure the patients receive the consent form and stuff like that. It's this compensation in the form of a check. This is just how you just need to put in how much money they're going to be receiving, and this is going to be sent to the patient by Dr. Wen. We don't really deal with anything in this. Normally, if we're back into the lab, it would be in an envelope that you would just, it has the purpose labeled on each one. So you would just count out, okay, this is how many, this is how many, this is how many. I think I know it's 5 for getting your weight measured. I think it's 15 for survey and then 10 for the visit. Could potentially be wrong, but I think that's it. And then wrap up, it's just making sure that everything has been completed. So this is also something very important, is that if you see, there are these little completed boxes, completed, uncompleted, and NA. So if we were in the lab, you would check these off, but I'm not tech savvy enough to know how to do that in Word. So I just highlight it. So like this, I just highlight and then actual highlight. So just through each step, when you do complete one, you do need to highlight it. So this kind of wrap up is just you write down, like it says here, say goodbye to the patient, write down the ending time, and make sure all of these little boxes have been checked. And then if you haven't done one, that's the point where you can be like, oh, my apologies to interrupt, but would you mind doing X, Y, or Z? And then these screens, when it says review the screenshots, so this is kind of just you go over with Dr. Wen any of the notes that you have, any of the notes that have been taken through the visit. There should be a note section in here, which I might need to add because I know we have one in our pregnancy, but I will add a note section in here. And it's the patient visit calendar, so just kind of going over how many cigarettes the patient has been smoking, as well as their height and weight. It's just kind of the things that you went over through the visit. And if there's anything concerning, that's the time where you can bring it up to Dr. Wen, or just kind of basic information about the patient. So where it says these screenshots from Pivot Journey and Runcovo. So Pivot Journey is an app that we're currently using to kind of help patients track their cigarettes. They can take screenshots and send it to Dr. Wen. I don't know how much we've delved into this with other patients. To my knowledge, we haven't really done an extensive amount with patients with this app, but it does work fairly well. I've tried it myself. I don't smoke, so I had to make up data, but it worked. and I could put in my fake cigarettes. And the screenshots from the Runcobo, anytime you see Runcobo, it's taking the weight of the mother. And these are going to be sent to Dr. Wen, at the moment at least, to Dr. Wen, and then Dr. Wen is going to paste these images in the patient visit folder. And then that's it. There's going to be steps are going to be different depending on which one you're going to. And I am going to go through each one. I'm not going to go as in depth because a lot of these are the same. But I am going to just kind of point out for the pre-test, this is something different you need to do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. I did not know who said yep. Was that Ethan?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Colin.
I think I asked this last time I went through this. Did you bring up Pivot Journey? Is that with the carbon monoxide?
So
Is that Runcobo is the weight, right?
Runcobo is the weight. Pivot Journey, it does have, I think it's like a startup company. They do have a carbon monoxide detector that they do use. We don't use it.
Okay.
But they made an app. So they have an app that normally you'd have to pay for, or maybe it's only accessible if you buy the carbon monoxide detector, which is like $200. But they made the app that they have free. So that's what we're using for patients to just track how many cigarettes. It's kind of the same thing as the patient visit calendar. So it's kind of the same thing as, once it gets up, this. This is basically what the Runcobo app is doing. And then it also goes more into depth about like, oh, well, why were you smoking? Was it? So then you can kind of see later on, it's like, oh, it's more of a habit versus actually like craving a cigarette. Or there are certain triggers that some people have where it's like, okay, when I like right after dinner, I always smoke. So then this also helps us by seeing it's like you smoke every single day after you have coffee. So why don't we change up that habit so then you won't crave that cigarette? Because if you say it's like, okay, I have my coffee, now I'm going to go for a walk, or potentially eat breakfast first and then have coffee, and then that might completely erase the need for the cigarette. Because ideally, we would get the mothers down to not smoking. And these are kind of like the initial steps that we take. This is more stuff that you would talk about later on with the mother, like I'm going to show you the next step where you talk about it. But for our purposes for this visit, it's just to track the cigarettes.
Okay, and this helps to see if they're pairing smoking with a different type of habit, like you said. Maybe
Yeah.
some wake up first thing in the morning and that's what they do. So you try and pinpoint where that is.
Yeah. And then later on, you would give patients, so like basically the next visit, you would give patients potential things they could do afterwards. So it's like, okay, so instead of smoking right after dinner, why don't you go for a walk? And then that would ideally get your attention away from smoking long enough that the craving passes. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go. This is more in depth later on, I promise. So, okay, so that's it for lab screening. So, okay, patient visit instructions. Step 2, pretest. Okay, so same thing. For this one, you don't need to have the patient show a valid form of identification. For the first visit, we've already confirmed that the patient is who they say they are. So we're like, you're good. So you don't have to ask them for their ID every single time. Again, check the surveys, review smoking status, weight measurement, compensation, and then here's kind of the portion where it changes. So this is going to be different for smoking cessation and pregnancy. For pregnancy, we're going to give them breastfeeding educational material. I'm going to bring up another tab for smoking cessation. For smoking cessation, I believe that this is a PDF that we have for the patients. They can access this via SurveyMonkey. Yeah. So this SMK is just smoking visit material. And we're at the moment going to go to, okay, so another good tip. If you see this clean copy, this is just saying that it doesn't have any of the markups. So I have been going through and just editing these basically to make them individualized per visit. So if I just click on it, you'll kind of see that there's like this red line towards the left. That's just kind of like a thing within Word that lets me track it. So if I make a mistake and delete a whole section, I have the section that I can just be like, I want to undo this part. But this is what it should look like. So it's like aim for the clean copy. Okay. Yeah, so this is the pre-test with the smoking cessation. Status, weight. So the weight's the same for both ones. Pre-test survey is going to differ. So do you guys know what I'm saying when I talk about the surveys?
Yes.
Okay, Colin's a yes. What about you, Ethan?
Oh, that was me, Ethan.
Oh, just kidding. Ethan said yes. Colin, what about you? Colin? Oh, we've
Oh,
lost
I'm
him.
sorry. Yeah. No, no, I got it.
Okay. Wait, was that a yes or no?
Yes. No. I know what you're talking about.
He said yes and no at the same time. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for anyone watching this, this is in SurveyMonkey. I don't know if I should show it, but SurveyMonkey. It's talking about what we have the patients complete in SurveyMonkey. If you've done patient messaging, it's the thing we send to them. So again, just do this prior to the visit. And then if they have any questions, like this would be a time where you would ask them if they had any questions regarding the survey. But highly recommended to check surveys prior to the visit. And then here is what I need to copy over into the breastfeeding one. It's just a section where you can make notes on the patient. So this would be a section where you can record their pregnancy, just general things, and their smoking. What I normally like to do is just kind of do a little title and then a dash, and then at the end, like either highlight it, bold it, or something. So it's not just kind of all over the place, especially because I do tend to take a lot of notes. So if you're like me, this is something I would highly recommend doing, but this would be the area where you would record what the patient says. And also once you get down to the bottom and it says wrap up, this is where, the wrap up, this is also something that you would go over with Dr. Wen. So, review smoking status. So for this one, the first lab screening visit, we're basically going to be scheduling everything up until, I think, end of pregnancy. So end of pregnancy is when the patient is in her 35 weeks or more. And this is basically like baby's coming soon. And this is just kind of like the wrap up before the patient gives birth. And then we start our postpartum visits. So, but these are at least with the pregnancy and smoking cessation. Oh, dang it. So for the pregnancy and, excuse me. This is the pregnancy and smoking cessation one. For the lab screening visit, it's pretty much exactly the same. Like you'll see this is the only difference. Height measurement, compensation in form of a check. They're basically exactly the same thing. There is here where it says schedule next appointment, it says schedule all appointments for the rest of the pregnancy. So this includes pre-test, initial intervention, 10 subsequent intervention visits, post-test, and end of pregnancy. So this is, you're just basically going to have to go through with the patient and be like, hey, does this day work? Because these are some of them have to be within the same week. So if you'll see, this pretest and initial intervention, they do have to be within the same week. And the subsequent interventions are twice a week for 2 weeks and then once a week for another 6. So these are going to be really close together. And I would recommend scheduling all of these. Like the end of pregnancy, you can kind of estimate for when about the patient's going to be 35 weeks. But these I would schedule that day with the visit because they are going to have to be so close together that I think post-test you can wait a week after, so it doesn't have to be within the same week of anything. But when it says confirm with the patient, this is what it's talking about. It's like you're already going to have these scheduled. So, sorry. You're already going to have these scheduled, so you kind of just have to be. There you go. Oh, I'm sorry, I have too many things open. Okay. Yeah, this is it. So this confirm future appointments with the patient, just say like, do these, and then you can say the dates and times of the next 3 still work. So this gives the patient kind of an opportunity to be like, oh, actually I have an appointment that day. Can we change it for X, Y, or Z? And then all of that you should do within the Google Calendar that I showed you earlier. You should have access to that already. If you don't, talk to Dr. Wen. I'm very sorry, I can't do anything for you. So the main difference with the pretest instructions is the educational stuff. Okay, that's breastfeeding. So, or maybe not. Okay, my apologies. I was wrong with this one. For this one, only difference is checking virtual visits. See, even I have to read through these. So this one, the only difference is check that the patient's visits still work for her. Don't say that. I don't remember doing it. I think this is actually slightly different with the breastfeeding. I haven't done a virtual visit with the breastfeeding instruction yet. So, but here you're going to have to go over the breastfeeding educational material. So right here it says email the patient a copy of your breastfeeding guide, and she's going to have to read the first 3 chapters before the next visit. I would also recommend, because you are going to be given access to it, I know for a fact that it's in the 2 emails that Dr. Wen sent you. I don't know exactly which one it is. I know it's a PDF in there, but I would recommend reading it along with the patient so you can answer any questions that she has. It's a pretty quick read, so. But she also will have these 2 YouTube videos. So these are going to be sent to her well, one of them is going to be emailed. So your guide to breastfeeding, we're going to have to email to the patient. And these 2 it says lecture 1, the 2 YouTube videos, these are either going to be texted or emailed to the patient. So if they're texted, they're going to be in the group chat. You can ask the patient which one she prefers. So, and that's going to change how you're going to get it to her. But she is going to need to take a quiz the next time. And these are actually online. You are going to take these. Well, we're not going to take these with her, but we are going to ask her to share her screen. The lovely Ariana has already completed all of these quizzes, so you guys just need to find the link and send it. And I think that should be in the next folder. And then we would schedule her next visit here. That should be right. It looks like it's for in the next week. And then again, wrap up, review screenshots.
Hey,
So,
I just have a quick question about the scheduling.
oh yeah.
I know like in the training that I've seen, we have like baseline visits, but I see on these it's only interventions. Are we not doing baselines anymore? Do you know?
We're still doing interventions. I don't think we're doing baseline interventions.
Okay.
So we have like initial intervention and then subsequent interventions. And I need to double check how many that is for breastfeeding, but again, in the smoking cessation one, the first visit, so the lab screening visit will tell you how many to schedule for those. I need to double check on pregnancy, and that's probably something I should note in here. So thank you for bringing that up. But no, I don't believe we're doing baseline intervention. I think that's kind of shifted over to initial intervention.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying, Liz? Oh, okay. Sorry, my team viewer did not like that. Again, okay. One difference here is that the comments usually in the breastfeeding are going to be below. So this is the same thing with the smoking cessation, except it's not in its own little section. It's just kind of like if you have any comments about what any questions that you've asked the patient, and this could be in regards to like how she's feeling. Are there any triggers she has when she wants to smoke? X, Y, or Z, like how are you doing in your pregnancy? How's just things in general? This is where you would kind of note it down. Okay, so so this repeated baseline, skip it. This isn't even in the pregnancy and smoking cessation. Is this what you were talking about, Colin?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Yeah, no, skip it. You're going to go right to initial intervention and then subsequent interventions.
Okay.
So this is in the smoking visit materials. I don't even think we have a section for this in the breastfeeding materials. So these ones are going to be, this is what I need to go through today and basically put clean versions. So if you have a patient visit today, just use the earliest date modified. So, and also just in general, just be careful about which one you're talking about. So for the initial intervention, for smoking cessation, that's going to be different from the breastfeeding smoking cessation one. Oh, it took me too far. So also, if you need to have me slow down and take a picture of this upper part, what I'm highlighting, I'm trying not to click on anything because I don't want to go back. But I would recommend taking a picture because if you're like me and accidentally click on things and then get lost and have no idea how to get back, this is very helpful. What you can always do if you're really lost is just completely close this and then go to this S Drive shortcut folder. I guarantee you it's going to be on almost every computer. So if you click on that, it's going to bring you straight here.
Mhm.
So if you want to, just say, oh, can you hold on a second? And then I will happily pause and you can take the picture. I'm going to take silence as we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yep.
Okay. So if you'll see, Colin, we don't even have repeated baseline here. We just go straight to prenatal intervention. Okay, well, I'm going to click on it. So I think there's a total of, okay, so one of these differences is a lactation consultant. So some of these patients are actually going to be communicating with our lactation consultant. So for people who might not know, this is somebody who would help instruct the woman with breastfeeding, especially once the baby is born. It's going to give the mom some tips on if the baby isn't latching correctly or if she's having any issues with breastfeeding, then she would help the patient along those lines. Currently, it's for more educational purposes when the mom is here and just be like, hey, like, are there any questions? Because we are going to give in the breastfeeding study, we are going to be giving the patients material that they're going to be reading so she can also have a more accurate and personal way to help answer these questions because we're students. It's like I know about as much probably as the materials. So I can only answer a certain amount of questions. So she is our professional towards this. Her name's Ray, and she would be normally included in the Zoom call for if the patient is going to be, for the patient, if you're in the lab, you would get her up on the iPad. So she's in both forums, she's virtual. She's really nice. So, and you're going to see that on the, you're going to know if you're going to need to do that for, if you look at, so if you look at, excuse me, here you'll see FaceTime counseling with, this is a canceled visit, but you'll see FaceTime, if I can highlight this, FaceTime counseling with Ray. So that's an indicator that it's like, okay, I'm going to need to include Ray on this call. And at least for the Zoom visit, she's going to be included in the group chat. So that's probably going to be one of the first things that you're going to do. But also if you don't see it, oh, I didn't want to close that. Oh. But also if you don't see it on the patient's visit, then that's not a step that you really need to include, which is why, if I can get back to it, no, this is, which is why it says optional. And it's in bold red what I just said if it's not in the patient visit calendar. So you do not need to instruct the patient to switch off video access. That's only if they're breastfeeding for their own privacy. But they're not doing that if they're still pregnant. So I think that's okay. And then again, you have the weight measurements. And then here you have the breastfeeding material. So I might need to go over this, just double check because there's a couple of indiscrepancies that I just noticed. So ask her to read the first 3 chapters before the next visit. I need to double check exactly which visit that's going to occur in. That's my bad. I will get to it. For people watching this, it should be fixed by the time you guys are watching this, / once you guys have to do your own virtual visits. So just refer to this section. And so there should be about 3 sections for each visit. And I believe there are 6 quizzes. Okay, yeah. So you'll see we have these guide to breastfeeding quizzes below. So this is for to quiz the mother on the information that she read and the information that she's seen in the YouTube lectures. So you're going to have, oh, I'm sorry, there are 5. So for each quiz, she's going to get, it's going to say right here, but she's going to get 2 attempts to correctly answer 80% or more. And if she does, she gets $5, which is great. Yeah, and she, even after the quizzes, she is going to get a couple of more materials, but if you just look at the lectures here themselves, you'll get a good idea. So if it's like intervention number 6, you're going to be like, okay, there's no chapter and no quiz for that. But it's going to have like intervention number X, Y, or Z. So you just kind of got to follow along with the corresponding lecture number. That confused me slightly. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Perfect. So this is going to be one of those where you're going to kind of have to use this repeatedly. So it's not just kind of like a one and done thing. I don't think it's necessarily this one. I have to double check. Sorry. So, okay, yeah. So this is one, the step 7 instructions for prenatal intervention visits. This is going to be one that you're going to basically have at least 7 times into the patient's folder. This is going to vary depending on when the patient joined our study, because there are some patients who they've joined after they already gave birth, so they're not going to have this. But if you do need to use the initial intervention visit, there should be a total of 7. I'm sorry, this is the smoking cessation one. For the breastfeeding one, if you're using the prenatal intervention visit, there should be about a total of 7 if they've started from lab screening on. And even then, that's not necessarily true. It just depends on when the patient joins. But if they've joined like very early in their pregnancy, they should have all of these. So I think these are scheduled about a week apart. I need to double check. I think these might be about a week apart, but I will double check. Again, anytime you're not sure, this information will be in the instructions. Totally forgot what these were. Or just ask one of the research assistants. I promise we're quite nice. We don't mind questions. Ask if you're not sure. I asked so many questions when I first joined. And then you have compensation in the form of a check. Schedule the next visit, so that's going to be like the next prenatal intervention. And then for that, you would just do prenatal intervention number 7 or number 2. If this was the first one, you go number 2, and then so on and so forth until you're done. Yep, see right here. Number 1, 2, 3, etc. And then review the screenshots. So that's kind of the main difference for this one. So for the really not for another one. Okay, so if I go to the smoking cessation, this is slightly different. So SMK visit, again, visit instructions, and this is, I think I actually already have this open. Yeah. So for this one, it's going to be different from there. I don't think we give the patient quizzes, but I need to double check. No, we do give the patient quizzes. I'm so sorry. It's been a while. But same thing, initiate Zoom call, weight measurement. Okay, so for this one, the initial intervention, this is the main difference for it. So you'll see the brief review of the patient manual. So it's going to give you a survey link right here. But if you need it for the smoking cessation visit, all you need to go is, I went too far, go to SMK visit materials. It's going to be in your educational folders. And you'll see that there's editable text responses for this UNC booklet. Again, this is something that you're going to want to copy and paste into the patient's folder, but this is something that you should be able to write on. So I think there's also, I think this is what they're talking about with the patient manual. So this is what we're going to be quizzing the patient on. This is going to be later. We assign the patient a certain section. I think there are about 8 sections, it looks like, and she's going to have a quiz per section. So again, if you have a smoking cessation patient, this is what you're going to be using. And I would highly recommend reading it along with the patient. So if one of your patients has to complete section 1, just go over section 1 so then you can answer any questions that she might have. Again, this is going to be in the email that Dr. Wen sent you. So this is going to be reading assignments for the patient, and there's another one that we need to use where it's this editable text response. So this is what you're going to be going through. Oh, it's just very zoomed in. So this is what you're going to be going through with the patient during this initial intervention. I think we've budgeted about 30 minutes for it. This is not the brief review of the patient manual. The reading sections are the one that are the patient manual. These are the ones that have a quiz. For the review, the need to put out a cigarette booklet, that's this. Right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so no quizzes on this one.
Yes, there are no quizzes on this one. This is solely for, we're going to fill it out with the patient. And I'm going to show you what that means. So if I scroll down a little bit, this, during the visit, you're just going to go through this with the patient. So you're just going to kind of read over. Again, I would highly recommend just kind of quickly going through this first. All of this, again, is found in the email that Dr. Wen sent you with a bunch of different material for the visits. I think it's in either part 1 or part 2 of the email. I'm very sorry, you're going to have to search, but it's one of the PDFs. So during the visit, you just kind of want to go through with the patient and just kind of like read out some of the benefits to the baby, the carbon benefits for quitting smoking, and again, just each section. And then sometimes you're going to come across these little blue things that you can edit. So this would be more of an interactive portion with the patient. So for this one, for example, it's list your main reasons for quitting smoking here. So this would be like, okay, well, you would ask the patient, why do you want to quit smoking? What are your main motivations for quitting smoking? And they might say something like, oh, it's so expensive, the baby will be healthier. And they'll give a bunch of reasons. So as the patient is saying that, you're just going to want to record them here. And same thing with when you're getting ready to quit, it also helps to think about times that you usually smoke. These times you will need to find something else to do instead. So just like I was saying earlier, how the Pivot app helps us, this is kind of also where you go very in detail with the patient about like, what are the main times where you find yourself smoking? And then later on in this book itself, it's just like right here, it says list 3 daily habits you can change to cut your chances of smoking. So it's like, instead of smoking when I finish eating dinner, I will try going for a walk. And this is also, you've got to work with the patient of just like, what are you comfortable with? Because like some patients, going for a walk is like a no-no. Or not all patients like knitting. I don't know why I use that as an example. But again, just work with them to do stuff that works for them. So it's like one thing is like, okay, we'll try chewing gum. And
So I have a question now.
okay, yes.
You said that we do get patients that are post-pregnant and it's just for relapse purposes, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's for relapse purposes. It's just, if we get a patient who's postpartum, we can't go through those initial steps. We kind of just have to, we do the lab screening, and then I'm pretty sure we start from postpartum.
Okay. So for patients like that, would you guys ever suggest using an alternative nicotine to wean them off of cigarettes? Or is that never something that you would advise?
I've never advised it. I don't know if we can.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm asking for, like the patches and the gum.
Yeah, I don't know if we can. I would say that's probably something they should consult their doctor on, because especially we don't know their health
Right.
history. So there could be things that they have or other medications that they're taking that is interfering with that. You can ask the patient if they've ever tried it, because it's something that it's like, oh, they've tried quitting before. Like that's something that you should note down. But I don't think we can actually say, well, why don't you try the cigarette? Like you can always try
Right.
the nicotine patches. This section right here is always going to be done when the patient is currently pregnant. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
This is I haven't done every single visit under the sun, so I
Yeah,
could be.
that's why I asked for the postpartum, because obviously it's not really good advice to be like, maybe you should get on nicotine gum when they're still pregnant, you know?
Yeah, that's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of just work with breaking the habit, and it's like, hey, why don't you you could try doing this instead, and X, Y, or Z, like less medication purposes, if that makes any sense.
And plus, I think as he said, oh, I was just finishing a sentence, but he said, how long does you only have that feeling for like 3 to 7 minutes and then it goes away, right?
I
Typically,
think so.
like that urge. Yeah.
That sounds reasonable. Or not reasonable. That sounds scientific.
Okay.
It's Aziz has been here longer than I have. So listen to Aziz.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
echoing. But yeah, and it's like this is also why we tell patients to like try doing this. So it's like just kind of getting over that craving, and then after you are done with that craving, you're like, okay, I'm good. So,
Mhm.
and even it's like with my personal experience with working with patients with this, like just doing those kind of replacements have reduced how much the patient is smoking. So it's going to take a while to like completely get it down to zero, but we do have a lot of moms who have completely quit smoking,
Right.
which is great. Yeah. So for this, just go through with the patient and fill in anytime you see the blue. That's an indication you're going to need to fill in something. This will take you a while. So this might take you 30 minutes. This might take you 40 minutes. Oh, an important thing here, quit date, because I totally missed this the last time. So, oh yeah, set quit date within the next 14 days. This might vary depending on a patient. So if a patient really isn't confident that they can quit or is like expressing a lot of hesitation, you might want to try making it like 3 weeks. Just extend it a little bit longer. But if the patient has been very responsive and very cooperative, I would say aim for within the next 14 days. And so you can kind of give them, it's like, okay, so why don't we set your quit date for X, Y, or Z? But also, if the patient wants to change their quit, like if the patient is like, I don't feel comfortable with that, we do need to listen to the patient and be like, okay, so just try to make it as close to that 14 days as you can while still working with the patient. And then you're going to not only fill that in here, but you're also going to fill it in the booklet where it says my quit date. So that's a good thing to handle. And also make sure that patients understand that it's totally okay to slip. Everyone has slips. This is a hard thing to quit.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is going to take you a bit, but you are going to want to go through this entire booklet with the patient. By the time you are done with the visit, this booklet should be completely done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this booklet is also going to be sent to the mom. So just so she has kind of reference for herself. And again, if I go back to the educational material, the patient manual, just for clarification purposes, because I felt like I was kind of all over the place. This is what the mom is going to be reading, and you should be reading too. And she's going to get quizzes on. And then if she, again, the same thing with the pregnancy, if she gets those quizzes right, or if she gets those quizzes with an 80% or more, it's going to be a $5 addition to the compensation she's getting for today. And she gets 2 chances. So there should be, oh, I did something. I don't know what I did, but I won't save it, so it'll be fine. Yeah, most of these sections are like maybe 5 pages long. They're really quick reads, so it won't take you too long to read these. But yes, so just read those along with the patient. Okay. And then so for the initial intervention, you'll see that the Pivot app is here. This is where we're going to be using a lot of the Pivot app. So this will especially help the mom track how many cigarettes that she's using, and more so with the reasons. So you can kind of work with that in conjunction to the Need Help Quitting booklet, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So, and again, you have the patient visit calendar. This patient visit calendar and patient smoking and pregnancy update notes, you're going to be seeing them a lot. So, do you guys feel comfortable where that is?
I think I
I would
feel
say
pretty.
so, yeah.
Okay. Ethan, you're comfortable, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was the one who said that.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's like sometimes you light up when you're talking and sometimes you don't. And then I think Colin's talking. Okay, but perfect. for people watching, I'm sorry, I'm so awkward. But for people watching, just rewind the video slightly, and I think it should be there. Or if you see me about, I'm the one with the really high pitched voice, just ask me and I'll show you. And again, confirm appointment with the patient, just record compensation, wrap up, and then go over it with Dr. Wen. So later on, especially with the subsequent interventions, when the mom's using the Pivot app, she's actually you would ask her to kind of bring up her history on the app and just send a screenshot to Dr. Wen. So she's going to screenshot it and send it to Dr. Wen. And it's the same thing with the weight. That's going to be stored in her patient folder. So then it's good for our records because then we can be like, okay, we're 100% sure that this is what the patient said versus when during the visit, especially virtually, you might mishear her. So with the Pivot app, you don't necessarily have to do the patient visit calendar right then and there. Like I would still update it with the visit times and dates, but there's a little bit more leniency with it. So in the breastfeeding study, you would do the prenatal interventions up until the lectures are done, and then you would switch to the post-test visits. For the smoking cessation study, if I go to visit materials and I go to visit instructions, there's going to be these subsequent interventions. So this is where the patient is going to have the quizzes. And these are going to be where, again, how for scheduling these, just refer to the lab screening bottom portion, which, so if I go to smoking visits, smoking screening, most recent lab screening, by the time people are using this, there should be a clean copy. So click on the clean copy. But if you go all the way down to the bottom where it says schedule next visit, this is going to give you everything you need to schedule for when I'm talking about the subsequent interventions and initial interventions. So I'm not going to say when you need to schedule those because it's right here. Weight measurements, review. So for the quizzes, you're going to have to take on a code. This is for smoking cessation. We're putting a pause on breastfeeding, the breastfeeding one for the moment, because they don't have one similar to this. But for, I'm so sorry. For these, you have to take on a co-host role, which you do also have to take on a co-host role in breastfeeding. I'm so sorry. But the co-host role is Dr. Wen is basically going to assign it to you, and you just kind of need to let the patient share her screen. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, like I'm not too familiar with Zoom, I use it for friends, so I'm not so familiar with the co-host and sharing the screen function. Don't worry, we've written it out. So this is one kind of like how you allow, so this portion is Dr. Wen's going to allow you to do the co-host role. And these are pretty much step-by-step instructions on how to allow the patient to share their screen. And if you go slightly below, this is step-by-step instructions on how to give the patient their quizzes. So they have the share screen instructions, and below it is kind of getting the patient to the link itself and then taking the quiz. It's called Quizzes. That's the app or the website that we're currently using for that. And then it just gives you share versus stop share. So for both allowing the sharing and the actual portion of it, there's going to be the physical steps in here. So if you're not familiar with that, just refer to this. I promise I've also read it, and I am not the most tech savvy, and I was able to do it. So I have full faith in everyone watching this, / the 2 people who are currently here with me right now. So after the patient finishes the quiz, whether it be the first time or the second time, don't have her close it just yet. So you're going to kind of get like an ending overview. So that's a good opportunity to kind of go over the patient, go over the answers with the patient and be like, okay, so you got this wrong. Why did you think that? Just kind of, it opens up for discussion. And the quiz links are right below. So my apologies, there are 8 sections. No, there are 7 sections. I just can't read Roman numerals apparently. There are 7 sections. You don't have to have the patient take version A and version B. Just pick one of them and send it to the patient. But these are the links that should take you directly to, take you and the patient directly to the quizzes that you need to take. So there should be a total of 7 or 8 subsequent interventions. And for each subsequent intervention, just like in the prenatal intervention, you're going to have the patient take a quiz. I think there's one where she doesn't. Again, I need to double check because I might have just not been able to read Roman numerals. It's entirely possible. Nope, I wanted educational material. So these are the quizzes that are linked to this guy. This one, Manual for Quitting in Pregnancy. Okay, yeah, there are 7. So there should be a total of, my apologies. I think we have you schedule 8 subsequent intervention visits because we do 2 for twice a week and then 6, or no, that's 10. Oh, that was really loud. This is what you're going to be referring to in terms of the quizzes. So like for quiz 1, it would be for section 1, quiz 2, section 2. It's just read those over. And prior to taking the quiz, I would also recommend just asking the patient if she has any questions. So this is where it helps to read it over, because then if she has a question on something, you can be like, I've also read that, and here's my best help with the answer. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense.
Cool. Wrong one. Okay. So, and then again, just we have the pregnancy and smoking cessation updates. Here, you're also going to ask about how the patient's quit, like just kind of get updates on how the patient's quitting is going. So if she's having any success, if she's having any struggles, if she has any questions, and the whole shebang. And the compensation. So again, this is going to depend on if she gets the quizzes right within those 2 attempts. The quizzes at 80% or more in those 2 attempts. If she does, she gets $5. If she doesn't, she doesn't. There's a section right here that you can check off if she did do the quiz, or if she passed, if she failed, or if she didn't do the quiz. Confirm the next date and time of the appointment with the patient. Wrap up, and then review screenshots after visit. So after you've done all of those subsequent intervention visits, you're going to go to post-test, which is why I wanted to hold off on doing the smoking cessation post-test. So if I go to visit instructions and go to post-test, okay. So I'm just going to continue with the smoking cessation one for the sake of continuity. You have Zoom call, weight measurement, check patient post-test survey. So something I should also mention that I totally forgot is for both the prenatal intervention and the initial and subsequent interventions, those don't have surveys. So you're not going to be sending, the patient kind of has to take quizzes in the place of surveys. But, excuse me, that's why if you saw the, like within the patient instructions itself, it didn't have check survey because there's no survey to check. Review the patient history. And again, you have the Pivot app. So when you, around where you're going, the patient, when you're reviewing the patient visit calendar is around the time where you also want to have the patient take a screenshot of their pivot and send it to Dr. Wen. And then right here is the research number that we have for Dr. Wen that she should send it to. Here is just the smoking cessation counseling. Confirm the next appointment. So the next visit, again, it's going to be farther away because we need to wait till the patient's around 35 weeks. That could vary depending on when she had her, when she scheduled her, or sorry, when she joined the visit. So generally, if you want to kind of make a rough date, then I would say just kind of calculate when, like 5 weeks from the patient's due date. So the patient around the first visit should say about when her due date is, and just kind of go back about 5 weeks and you can put it around then. And then if the patient needs to, she can of course change it, but you really should aim for around those 5 weeks. Compensation in form of a check, wrap up, and screenshot. This one, especially when you compare it to the initial intervention and subsequent interventions, these ones are pretty short visits themselves. And if you go to I need to take this part out because this should be done. I think by the post test, these should be done. I will double check with Dr. Wen. My apologies. This is my fault. But check that the patient completed the post test survey. Review the smoking status, weight measurement. I don't think you need to go over this. These should have been visited by the finished by the prenatal intervention. That's my fault, and I will edit that as per needed. But again, when you're using this, it should be fine. Same thing here, compensation in form of a check, schedule the next visit, wrap up, and then review screenshots. So down here, it does give you kind of a basic overview of what the Google Calendar should look like. So this is what, when you actually schedule the visit within the Google Calendar, like this is just what you need to type. The only difference is you actually need to put virtual, so like virtual and nice big letters in front so people know that it's virtual, because at the point we're still going to be doing virtual visits even when we do go back, because this also allows us to reach more patients. So it's like patients in Rochester and Syracuse, we will have a bigger sample size, which is great for research purposes. Again, same thing for this one, aim for about 5 weeks. Wrap up, review screenshots, and then again, there are additional comments that you can make right here as the patient is speaking. Okay, any questions so far?
No.
No, it's pretty straightforward so far.
Cool. It is quite straightforward. You pretty much just need to follow the checklist. It's going to feel awkward when you first do. Maybe that's just me, but I felt very awkward when I first did it because I was like, so how is everything going?
It could seem, at first, it probably seems a little robotic because you're kind of just reading like a manuscript in a way, you know?
Yeah, because it's you don't exactly know where to go next. Where now it's like much more comfortable. It's like, okay,
Right.
I know I need to do X, Y, or Z. And then it's a lot easier. It's also a lot easier for me to just be like, okay, so she doesn't have this. That's okay. We'll just do this instead. So if it feels robotic and awkward at the beginning, moral of the story, don't worry about it. It gets better. So again, for the initiate Zoom call, this is something I did not mention earlier. Don't close the room. Like you can leave the meeting, just don't close it, which Dr. Wen has the host role, so I don't think that'll be an issue. But especially once we get back into the lab and we do these virtual visits, don't close it. Notify lactation consultant. Again, notify lactation consultant. This is for the breastfeeding and a pregnancy visit. Should have said that. Notify lactation consultant only if you see FaceTime with Ray. If you don't see it, then don't notify the lactation consultant, basically. Check that the patient's completed her end of pregnancy survey, review smoking status, weight measurement, compensation in form of a check. So for schedule the next visit, the patient is going to have to text Dr. Wen when the baby is born. And then Dr. Wen will let us know, and then we can schedule the visit based on that. But babies have a tendency to just kind of come when they want to, not necessarily adhere to due dates. So this is going to vary. Like it could be hopefully not, but like a month after, maybe a month after. Yeah, no, hopefully about a month after, but it could be like a week after, or it might even be before we actually end up scheduling the post test or the end of pregnancy. It might, maybe baby is delivered before the date here, and that's fine. We just got to go with it. In that case, skip the post test, go straight to postpartum. But again, this is a pretty short and sweet visit. We have scheduled for about an hour. I don't think it necessarily takes an hour, but definitely a good time to address any concerns that the mom has. Just make sure that she's comfortable with her smoking cessation and all that jazz. I think it should be about the same thing for the end of pregnancy visit for smoking cessation. So, yep, weight measurement, check that the patient's completed the survey, review her smoking status, and then you also, for this one, again, only difference is Pivot app screenshot. This is for any general notes when you're asking the mom about how she's feeling with her smoking, how her pregnancy is, X, Y, or Z. It could also just be things in general. So, yep, this is the, I should also add this in the pregnancy one too. For the end of pregnancy, this is the same thing. It looks longer, but it's just saying text Dr. Wen after you've had the baby, and also make sure to instruct the mom that from 0 months postpartum to 12 months postpartum, she's going to have a monthly visit. So that monthly visit can be whenever she wants. Ideally, we'd like to aim it around for when the baby does turn that month old. So like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, just like around the time of when baby should be turning that. Another important thing is when you're scheduling postpartum visits, try to avoid around the days that baby also has to go to the doctor to get their immunizations, because babies tend to not like that, and they already don't like it when we take their head measurements. So just try and make baby as happy as possible. Compensation in form of a check, wrap up, review screenshots after visit. Pretty straightforward. You can ignore the portions down here. I should probably delete those. This would be for if we were using the carbon monoxide detector and then our urine coat mean strips. We don't have those at the moment. So if you're in the lab, refer to this. If not, just ignore it. So after mom has given birth, you can close these. Then you move into postpartum visits. So what I also forgot to mention is from 0 to 12 months, she is moving into 1 month. And then after 12 months, we schedule her every 3 months. So she'll be scheduled at 15, 18, 21, and 24 months. And then after she's completed that 24 months, she's completed our study. I don't think we have anyone in the breastfeeding study who's completed 24 months yet, just because a lot of the babies have just been born or they're in like 12 months. So you'd see that a lot more in the smoking cessation study than here at the moment. I'm going to pull up the postpartum visit instructions. So just give me postpartum visit instructions for smoking cessation. So just give me 1 moment. At postpartum. Okay, yeah. So this is for the smoking cessation study. So it's going to say check to see if check baby measurement kit. So this is also kind of grouped in with the videos that I was filming. What you need is you need a weight scale to measure baby. You need a infant meter. Oh yeah, sorry. It's basically like a long measurement that you can place baby on the floor and measure how tall they are, as well as a baby head circumference tape. The head circumference tape is what they hate the most. So just be prepared for a lot of crying.
Mm-hmm.
But if the mother didn't receive these, there was one time where the mom just hadn't received it in the mail yet, because Dr. Wynn does have to send these via the mail. Just do as much as you can. So if she hasn't received the head circumference tape, it's fine to skip it for one visit and just do the baby's weight and baby's height. The phone stand we do provide them a phone stand. It's so they can prop up their phone as they're doing the measurements, because this is quite a physical task. We also highly recommend retrieving another family member, because baby, like I said before, they don't really love getting their head measured, surprisingly. So they'll try to take it off. So you kind of do need someone to hold baby down. And also when they're, for the infant meter, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, but babies like to kind of curl their feet up. They like to curl their legs up. And they do a lot of kicking. So you do kind of need someone in the family just to hold at least one of their legs straight. So this is also something that we do warn the mother ahead of time, just like, hey, we're going to need another person during this visit. So we would highly recommend having someone around if you can. And then we measure baby's head circumference, baby's length measurement, and baby's weight. So we measure the baby's weight to kind of see how much milk they're getting. This is especially for the breastfeeding patients. So we can check to see people who quit smoking versus people who didn't quit smoking, and also along with people who have breastfeeding education versus no breastfeeding education. Like, is their baby getting more milk? Is the baby growing more? X, Y, or Z. There are going to be surveys for each postpartum visit. So that's going to depend on the month. Those are going to be sent ahead of time to the patient, just like all the other ones, and check those before the visit. So mom's body composition, this is slightly different from I should also, all right, okay. Sorry, the mom's body composition is going to be, it's still going to be taken with the Runcovo scale, but it's going to be slightly different because sorry, I gotta get there. Okay, so you're gonna see the mom's body composition. So you have mom's participation ID. So that's like the ID that we normally use if we're scheduling her visits. Her date of birth, her current age, her height, and then just whoever's conducting it. So you're going to want to take 3 readings, and this is what you're looking for. You don't have to write these down at the moment that she's taking the visit. These are going to be sent as screenshots to Dr. Wynn and can be recorded later. So, but these are her body weight, percent body fat, percent of total body water, muscle mass, and basal metabolic rate. These are all going to be recorded in the Runcovo scale. So the only thing you really need to do is look for it, but you are going to want the mom to take it a total of 3 times. As for baby, if I go back to the shared files, and I go to the infant body anthropometrics sheet. So there's going to be one that says 3 measurements, and there's going to be one that says 1 measurement. The 3 measurements are going to be so this one is going to be for the breastfeeding study, because we want to see how much milk the baby is getting. For the smoking cessation, since we're not tracking breastfeeding, we kind of just want to see how much baby's putting on in terms of weight. Especially one of the complications towards smoking is babies being born at a lower birth weight. So we're also looking to see if baby is kind of catching up to that. And we're also looking to see if baby's kind of overshooting that, because there is a potential, obviously more research needs to be done, but there is a potential that there is a higher chance that baby is going to be more prone to obesity because of this overshoot and like kind of over catch up. So this one is for the smoking cessation study. So for this one, I misspoke. I do apologize. I'm going through the smoking cessation one right now. This is just the length, so the baby's height, the baby's weight, and the baby's head circumference. You don't need to do the percentile. And BMI should be calculated later. So at the moment, you can take it in either pounds or kilograms. I would kind of recommend kilograms, but it kind of depends on what the mom has set her scale to. So, and then it kind of goes back to after you do the mom's body weight and measuring the baby, like those are kind of the main differences within these studies. And then it goes back to review smoking status in the patient visit calendar, smoking cessation counseling, schedule a next visit, again, for within around the time the baby turns a month old for the next one. Compensation in form of a check, and then wrap up and review. Excuse me. So that would be everything for the smoking cessation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Okay, and honestly, it's not too much different from the postpartum visits for breastfeeding study. So this is the virtual visits that we're doing quite a lot. We have a lot of postpartum patients, or not a lot of postpartum patients, but this is the one we've been doing throughout most of COVID. Same thing, initiate Zoom, check baby measurement, phone stand, retrieve another family member, head circumference, length measurement. The main difference here is when it comes to the baby's weight. So you have a first weight measurement. So this is basically diaper off and clothes off, and then we ask mom to read it loudly, because around here is where the mom can turn off the screen share, not screen share, the video. For privacy, since baby is going to be naked.
Mhm.
And these are also, since baby might not necessarily like this, these are in a scale where it is connected to an app, so they can send screenshots to Dr. Nguyen. So if you don't get these at the moment, don't worry about it. They will appear in screenshot form later. So then we have the mom's body composition. We have checked that she completed the survey. Again, highly recommended you do that at the very, very beginning of the survey. Review smoking status on patient visit calendar, review her, this is just, can be kind of just in general. It's like, how is she doing in smoking cessation? How are things going? X, Y, or Z, stuff like that. This is also where when you can kind of put baby's milestones. So if the mom says that baby's been starting to get some physical food, then you can be like, then you can record that here, or if baby's walking, or stuff along those lines. So after you've done that, you are going to want to do a second weight measurement. These can be done, again, after the first weight measurement. We do just need that weight measurement without the clothes. And then we are going to do a second weight measurement with diaper and clothes on. So this is so we can subtract the diaper from the clothes, because later on you're going to want to, after you fed the baby, we're going to take a third measurement. And diaper and clothes are highly recommended to be on to prevent accidents. So this is just so we can subtract one from the other and we can get an accurate measurement.
Mhm.
So there's also a notify the lactation consultant. Again, this is only if you see FaceTime with Ray. And this is probably going to be one of the first things that you do. Like, she's going to she's going to be given the Zoom info, and she's going to enter into the Zoom chat itself. So that's probably going to be like one of the first things you do, and then you can go into the rest of the visit itself. This is also around the time where you might also want to make some notes. So in the section up here, just about how the mom's doing with breastfeeding that she's talking to Ray about, just jot anything that's relevant down. And then after that, particularly after the second measurement, you can ask mom to just feed baby as usual. So this might mean that breastfeeding, in that scenario, she can turn off the screen to give her privacy. This might be bottle feeding, and if the baby is getting bottle fed, it is important to kind of note if it's pre-made formula or if it's breast milk put into the form of a bottle, or it could be mixed, so the mom could be doing one or the other. But this is also something where you should clarify in your notes. And then after baby is done eating, take the third weight measurement. And then after you've completed all of that, you can schedule the next appointment. You have compensation in the form of a check, wrap up, and review all screenshots. So just going back to the baby's weight measurement, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I want to just show. So we have this one reading infant pometric sheets, but we have this infant body pometric 3 weight measurement. I call it body pometric. It's anthropometric. I'm so sorry. But you're going to see that these are the 3 readings. So you can ignore this. This is something that we would normally do in the lab. So during these types of visits, at around 1, 3, 5, and 9 months, I'm pretty sure. I could be missing one. But we take the mom's, and 12. I think it's also 12. Anyway, we take the mom's blood and we compare the progesterone and estrogen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Levels in her blood. So during that, it would be while she's breastfeeding or feeding the baby. And after that, we would take the baby's skin fold test. And if you think they don't like getting their head circumference measured, they really don't like the skin fold site. So when you're in the lab, just be prepared for that. But this one, obviously, we can't see baby in person, and this requires, like, Dr. One would be doing this with you. This would not be something you would do by yourself, ever.
Mhm.
So it would be, you're mainly there to hold baby down and just prevent them from squiggling. But this isn't something we can do during COVID, so ignore that. Where this is what your sheet, hold on. I'm so sorry. It's this one. It's the one that's 17.317. This is the right one. I was like, this doesn't look right. Okay, so everyone watching / Ethan, Colin, ignore what I just said. It's the 317 infant body pometric sheet. It's the same thing. You still have to take the readings 3 times, but you don't have to take length, weight, head circumference, like as one, if that makes sense. So it's like, I would say take the readings like this. And then length percentile, you can look up later. That's not something you're going to know off the top of your head. If you do, kudos to you. I'm very impressed. I don't. Same thing with weight percentile and head circumference. So again, the measurement sheets are something that you should paste in the patient's folders. So if you are just writing it from the shared folder, the shared files folder, no, that's not, it's wrong. So these should be pasted in here. And just to make sure that it's not saved over one of the files / you don't get it confused, I would also just edit and put today's date as well as the mom's name or her ID or her number ID in place of these on these sheets once you've copied it over. And same thing with adult height and weight sheet and weekly calendar. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
If you could just possibly show how to view the surveys real quick, because I've never done it personally myself.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Okay, so if you go here, you're going to need a computer with SurveyMonkey access, and that's not always going to be the case. But for SurveyMonkey, cool, mine does, which is great. To view it, you would go to My Surveys. And I'm just going to do, so where I just clicked, I'm just going to type in something, 11 month. This is where you would type in what the survey you are looking for is. So here you see how there's an infant care and breastfeeding promotion program, as well as a pregnancy and smoking cessation study.
Mm-hmm.
So this pregnancy and smoking cessation study are our A patients, where the infant care and breastfeeding promotion are our B patients, or the patients who are participating in the breastfeeding study. So I'm going to do infant care and breastfeeding promotion at the moment. And then once this goes, you're going to want to click Analyze Results. And it can take a bit to load. And after this gets up, you're going to want to go to question summaries. And here you'll see that there are a lot of patient IDs. So I'm just going to click the one at the top. If you can't find your patient ID, just where I clicked right here, you would type in the patient's ID number. And then once you search that, you would click View Respondents' Answers. And for this, all you need to do is pretty much, this one's pretty new, so I don't think it'll be completed. But if you just give it one moment, yeah, you'll see how right here it says incomplete in yellow. So if it's completed if it is completed, it's going to be green and say obviously complete in that section. But in terms of checking, that's pretty much all you need to do.
Great.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Okay, Dr. Wen, is there anything I missed? I'm going to take that as a no. Or it might be in the meeting. Okay, well, that's all I have to add. So any questions, concerns?
Not at the moment.
So
Probably when it goes to when we're actually involved, but
Yeah. And then you can ask people questions. It's like, I promise we're all nice. We don't bite. We understand. We were there. Okay. Dr. Wen? Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. Dang it. Stop sharing. Yes. Just gotta find my phone. Okay. Also, just in general, don't feel like you have to have yourself unmuted at all times. So, like, if you're doing something and you don't have to be talking, you can just put yourself on mute.
Okay, thanks.
It also helps with like background noise.
Thank you.
I was super scared to do that in the
Okay.
beginning. Ethan, Colin?
Yep.
Just wanted to double check. You guys didn't have any questions, right? I know I might have asked this quite a few times, but again, just double checking.
No. I think that was good. I think it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Okay.
Obviously, when it comes time to be part of the visits, I'll definitely have a bunch, but as of right now, no.
Okay, perfect.
yeah, you were pretty in depth, so it was good. It was helpful.
Yay, thanks. Sorry, I talked a lot, so I'm very sorry.
No, it was good. It was good.
All done?
Yep.
Okay. How comfortable do you guys feel about the visit now?
I feel relatively comfortable.
Yeah, I would say probably 6 or 7 out of 10, but it seems pretty straightforward. So
Yeah, great.
I think it's just going to take really like a few visits, maybe like one or two, to really kind of get into the swing.
Yes. Yeah, because of the confidentiality reason, we do not videotape the Zoom meetings, or then you need to actually be in the visit to have more practice or know exactly what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hopefully,
Yeah.
the sections will provide a good way for you guys to have a sense about the context there. Right. Great. Do you guys have any questions? Other questions for Hannah?
Not at the moment. I think we're all set there.
I think she covered a lot of it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let me stop the stop the recording, so then we can use this as a materials for other folks. Does that good to you guys? Yes.
Yeah.